Bill City Planning Commission meeting for August 3rd. I'll review the general operating procedures very quickly. We have two sessions, public hearing and deliberation. Public hearing will call the agenda. Applicants make their presentation. Commission members ask questions. Members can comment to the commission. Only 4 people for an agenda, 4 people against. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes, subject to the beep at 1 minute for a summary. After opposition, speakers do have a chance for a 2-minute rebuttal. If you do intend to speak, Mr. Byrd, just come on down to the podium. Speaking to the microphone, provide your name and address for the record. All comments to the commissioners only. After applications have been heard in public hearing, we'll go to deliberation, discuss the applications. Commissioners will then vote, and the results can be found out from the planning department. Any issues arise, deliberation session that were not addressed in the public hearing, we will have a chance to address those or hold over. Occasionally, there might be a recusal. Planning Commission makes final decisions on subdivisions with appeals of these decisions to the circuit court. Planning Commission is strictly a recommending body for rezone, conditional use permits, and planned developments. City Council makes final decision on all applications. All appeals are made to the circuit court. Cell phones to vibrate or silent. Commissioners and staff, turn on the microphones if you intend to speak. Roll call, myself, Jay Stubbs present, Mr. Kirk Matei, Ms. Jennifer Denson, Ms. Shirley Sessions.
Here.
Larry Dorsey. Here. Mr. Matt Anderson. Here. Mr. Nick Amberger.
Here.
Mr. William Carroll. Mr. Harry Brislin. Mr. Kenny Nichols. We have a quorum, and I'll entertain a motion to move on agenda item number 1 on the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Number 1 on the agenda, 653 Shannon Street, Shannon Heights subdivision. Re-subdivision of part of lot 9. Applicant is present, and Mr. Byrd, go right ahead.
Yes. The lot size has been dictated since 1997, I think. People have lived there. Their house burned to the point that it needed to be removed, and they're trying to build a new house. They certainly appreciate y'all meeting today with having a quorum. Hopefully we will be approved and they can finalize, well, not finalize, get started on construction. But we don't have a problem with the recommendation, consideration.
Yes, the consideration is 50 foot right away on Shannon Street, and then 25 setback on Shannon Street, along with the other compliance. Anyone else here to speak for this agenda item? Any written comments submitted on this agenda item? Anyone here to speak against? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing session, move into the deliberation. Any comments or questions from commissioners?
I would move that we approve the subdivision subject to staff recommendations. Second.
We have a move to properly a move to approve, properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes for the re-subdivision. And that was fun. That'll officially close the agenda. We'll move into business of this iPad.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, we are going to, from here forward, be putting all of the reports and the agenda for the commission on the iPads. Logan Anderson, one of our senior planners, for anyone that hasn't figured out, how we're doing it, I'm going to let him go over the instructions. Just pointing out, the iPads are not connected to Wi-Fi. We're downloading directly onto the iPads.
So everybody was able to log in. I mean, it was pretty easy. I think most of us were familiar enough. One thing on those instructions about turning on the iPad is incorrect. When it says to reach up and press the button on the right-hand side, that is if the iPad is in portrait mode. So if it's actually in landscape mode, it's going to be on your left. There's a couple things that we have not uploaded yet. which would be the bylaws, the standard operating procedures for the Planning Commission. If there's anything else that you think would make this easier or better for you, they're on there.
So, Logan, when we have the opportunity, if we needed to reference, everything's nicely tabbed here.
If you look, if you go back in your files, if you go all the way back out to the main screen, which there should be in your upper left-hand side, a back button.
All right, I have Board of Adjustment, Planning Commission, and then UDC.
The UDC is for both meetings. That is the Unified Development Code. Everything is laid out in PDF form, beginning with the Article 1 all the way through Appendix A, which I believe we put as 14 for the Downtown Development District. The subdivision regulations are copied over into the Planning Commission folder. Now, if it would make better sense for us to put the UDC in your Planning Commission folder, we can copy that and, you know, put one in both the Board of Adjustment and your folder. It's up to you. But otherwise, you would just have to back out and click on those. Mr. Nichols, I believe, found the split screen option for being able to see two things at once. I myself am not familiar with that, so that was news to me. But you thought it would be doing, okay. We'll toy with it and see if we can, because I understand what you're asking is if, you know, if we can look at kind of how the book is laid out. If you have on one side your reports, on the other side the regulations, that would be helpful.
So when we get, you know, 2 weeks from now or whatever our next meeting date is, 17th or I
Yeah,
think
17.
everything that's in, everything that's in this book is just going to be on this iPad. Still.
Yes.
Okay.
No more books. Unless you just absolutely, no, I'm not even going to offer that because Margaret's sitting here.
Yeah, don't tempt me.
If you go onto the website from your personal home computer and hit print, you're more than welcome to print every single one of those pieces of paper.
All right, from the chair position, it'll be easy to call the roll since all the commissioners will be on there. However, I do think it would be wise to put another document in here that's got the schedule.
Yes, we will be doing that. Yeah,
So-
this was a quick thing that we had to get done yesterday. So
Right.
we're obviously missing the procedural stuff as well.
Yeah.
So we'll get that all loaded on.
And then our template or script for the opening of the meeting.
Yes.
Either take this out and leave it up here at the chair position, or I think if you had both, that way somebody, maybe one day.
Yeah, I think what we'll do is create a folder just for the chairman and on each of them, so we're not having to keep up with one master iPad.
Yeah, that way you don't have to worry about that. But I do think, you know, if you just wanted to slip these out and keep them up here underneath or bring them in with the iPad, just these two pieces of
Sure.
paper because it's the script.
Just in case, yep. It's not connected to the internet. Yeah, we do not have the best Wi-Fi connection down here. And the only other option would be these, I forget what they're called, hotspots, which we only have so many.
GIS might be able to make a downloadable file that's just an overlay of the city with the parcel, and it should be a smaller file size than Google Maps or
Sure,
Google
we
Earth
can
ultimately.
definitely reach out to GIS and
Because there have been multiple times I've tried to look it up on my phone while we're in here or
Mhm.
something,
It's just not
and it
pulling
just
up.
doesn't work.
Yeah.
So if we could get an offline map, that would be
Yeah.
phenomenal.
And if you can think of specific information, that would be helpful. Zoning districts, obviously. I don't know how well an address layer would come across on an iPad if you're having to zoom in.
What I was thinking, and Nick might have been thinking this too, if it has the topo on it, because we get questions about drainage
Mm-hmm.
a good bit, and if it has lot lines like that, sometimes that's
Super
enough
helpful,
to be
yeah.
able, and street names. You know, like those three things are usually enough to give us a pretty smart picture of what we're dealing with. And
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure they're downloadable, so you don't need an internet connection to use them anyway.
Right. We can have those as a standard on each of the iPads for everybody.
So we had one agenda item today marked O1 Shannon Heights. Each agenda item from here on out will be O1, O2, O3.
That's correct.
All right.
And I also place the actual agenda on there, which would have a 000, and that's just to keep it ahead of everybody.
If we have online submitted comments instead of printing out the emails, will you then be able to
We'll,
print those to PDF? And so if Shannon Heights had a comment, you would say 001 comment or comments.
Ideally, what we could do is at the end of those, attach the comments as a single document so that it is at the end of the report for Planning Commission members.
Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, in this case, you know, we have the opportunity to PDF those out and attach them as well to the end of the staff report. That's obviously assuming, I think these have quite a bit of storage on them, so that shouldn't be an issue, but we can certainly do that. These are all great things for us to consider, and we appreciate the feedback.
But it's in the, Nick, that's what she would, oh, okay.
And I believe everybody here has my email. I've emailed at least the commission one time with the link to the staff reports. You're welcome to, if you have any ideas over the next 2 weeks, definitely let me know. And for those of you I have not met, I'm Logan Anderson. These are my cousins, and no, I'm just kidding. And cousin Matt.
I really was beginning to wonder.
I have been here for, 10 years. I had a little bit of a break in between, but yeah. So I've been here, so I'll try my best to answer any questions you guys have in the future.
So any comments or from neighbors or anybody that you attach here, we can pull it up at home as well?
No.
No.
That is something that is done internally that we then provide to each of you.
Okay.
What we can do, though, is, unless the commission has a different opinion, when there's a few, we usually just provide them to you at the
Right.
meeting and would continue to do that. But when we are getting a lot of them and receiving them ahead of time, we will continue to email them just
Okay.
like we have been.
Okay, that'll work. Thank you.
And did everybody see how to do the split view?
Yeah, that's something I'm going to have to be walked through as well because I'm not familiar.
So if you open up something that's got more than one page, if you go to the top, you see 3 little dots at the top. So you'd actually have to be in O1 Shannon Heights. There's 3 dots at the top. You can do full screen split view. And it says choose another app, but I don't know how to.
You just hit the file down at the bottom again, and you can open another instance of it.
Got it.
So like right now on mine, I've got the agenda for today up and then the regulations.
Yeah.
There you go. I don't want to try a third because I think 2.
Mr. Nichols has asked, what's the time frame for the proposed annexation areas to be considered for review by Planning Commission? Now, I'm saying since 6 months, but let me tell you the timeline that we're operating off of and the benchmarks that need to happen along the way. So staff has already done a cursory windshield survey of all of the annexed areas. We are in the process right now of preparing the future land use map. It will not only include the proposed annexed areas, but the update for the entire city. We didn't want to do it at two separate processes. So I would say the goal to have the flume presented to you all, and as you probably recognize, the flume is the basis for the zoning recommendations that we'll propose. We hope to have that before the Planning Commission, and that is the final action for the Planning Commission, I would say around November at the latest. From there, we'll also roll out the zoning recommendations for the annexed area. And of course, this body is recommending only, so you will review that and have your own associated public hearing with that process. But it is forwarded to the City Council in the same way that any other rezoning is for their final consideration as it will be adopted by ordinance. That timeline always gets a little fuzzy for me. We're obligated to advertise and go through those necessary steps, but then the City Council will have to determine its own timeline for taking that matter up. Now, I would say maybe this is a Doug question. In the interim, so all parcels are annexed into the city R1 residential. So between the time that this body reviews the flume and makes its zoning recommendations and then the council takes final action, conceivably a development could come prior to that process being complete. So if it's something other than R1 residential, then conceivably their request is to do something that's other than R1 residential. Conceivably, they could make an application to the city and you could hear a rezoning prior to us completing the flume and final zoning recommendation process. So conceivably, that could come really at any time.
Are we going to end up in a situation where we got just bukus of non-conforming uses out there?
One more time for me.
Do you think we're going to end up in a situation where we just have bukus of non-conforming uses?
So we've been discussing that and actually met with the Revenue Department so we can start to think about what that process will look like. It's kind of hard to tell the volume right now. That's probably a better Bert question because he's been spending a lot of time looking at the future land use projections based on the existing conditions that are out there. A little hard for me to tell right now, but I would say, I mean, there's a lot of redevelopment and growth going on out there, and we've obviously got folks that are reaching out to us now trying to understand, okay, what's my next step in the process now that I'm in the city? So back when we had application or jurisdiction rather in the PJ, I mean, that was the bulk of the applications via the subdivision process that were coming to the city at that time. And I would say I'd fairly confident in saying that rate, that volume hasn't changed. So it's kind of hard for me to predict, but I would say you're probably going to see a good bit in that Cottage Hill corridor. That's where the biggest presence of commercial development and housing activity that I think we're seeing of the three areas. So I know that didn't really answer your question, but just observations. Any other questions?
How many agenda items are on the 17th?
Yep, 6.
Okay. I'll be in touch with you. I've got people coming in from out of town. I got to figure out what time they arrive. Yeah. Come down. All right, any further business? Meeting adjourned.